Hello, I'm Caitlin Manfrey, Portland Ovations Director of Community Programs and Partnerships. Thank you so much for tuning in to POV, the Portland Ovations podcast. We are so excited to be welcoming Los Angeles-based activist dance theater company CONTRA-TIEMPO in just a few weeks for a week-long residency here in Portland, culminating in both public and school-time performances at Merrill Auditorium on Thursday, February 6th, 2025. If you're watching this before that date, tickets are still available at portlandovations.org. I would like to take this moment to thank the Maine Humanities Council and Back Cove Financial for their generous support of these programs. Today, we're bringing you a special conversation with Ana Maria Alvarez, Founding Artistic Director, and Ruby Morales, Company Member and Resource Director. CONTRA-TIEMPO is a bold, multilingual company that creates communities where all people are awakened to a sense of themselves as artists and social change agents who move through the world with compassion, confidence, and joy. They work to create a new physical, visual, and sonic vocabulary that collages salsa, Afro-Cuban, hip-hop, and contemporary dances with theater, compelling text, and original music to bring dynamic, multimodal experiences to the concert stage. Their performance, joyUS Justice, is an evening-length participatory activist dance theater experience that takes on joy as the ultimate expression of resistance. This piece embodies stories of hope, faith, family, strength, and of course, joy, collected from communities of color in South Los Angeles. Through this evening-long performance, they create a space of joy and healing, allowing the collective us to feel more connected, loved, powerful, and alive. Today's conversation is moderated by a familiar face, Brian J. Evans, Ovations Dance Series Scholar in Residence. Brian is a citizen artist, a multi-hyphenate performer, scholar, and educator who is currently assistant professor of dance at Bates College. In addition to participating in today's conversation, he will be coordinating and performing as part of a community cast of Maine artists that will be an integral part of CONTRA-TIEMPO's performance. I am now so pleased to welcome Brian, Ruby, and Ana Maria.
Well, thank you all for being here with us. CONTRA-TIEMPO, Portland Ovations Uniting. My name is Brian J. Evans. Pronouns are he, him, his. I'm an assistant professor of dance and theater at Bates College. And I also sit on the American Studies program, and that's why being the artist scholar in residence at Portland Ovations and an honorary crew, I'm just super excited about being a part of the performance, seeing y'all come, bringing that activist art. I actually teach a class called Embodying Activism, so I'm pumped to hear all about who you are, what you do, why you do it, and how it can change the world. So who wants to start?
I feel like I was gonna say, I feel like I have a good feed into some of what I've heard Ana Maria say before, and then maybe you can jump in after and add on, Ana Maria. My name is Ruby Morales, and I am the resource director for CONTRA-TIEMPO, and I am also a performer and a dancer. And I mean, I just remember recently hearing Ana Maria say that she deeply, deeply believes, literally at the root of it all is deeply believing that dance can change the world. And I think about when I was younger and when I was little and my mom asked me, how do you know what moves to make? Or how do you know I think I was 5 or 6 years old. How do you know what dance move to make with the music? And I was like, I just feel it. And I was 5 years old. And I think that there is so much information in that. And even in the statement, which sometimes I think, especially as a person who looks younger and was, I just recently turned 30. So I just came out of being in my 20s. And as a person who somebody would sometimes say something like that, as I just really believe that we can change the world. The way that people look at you as oh, that's cute. Or good luck with that. Or I think you can do it. You'll find your way. Is kind of not believing in the fact that that is actually a truth and a reality and something we deeply believe in. And I resonate with that so much. And when I met CONTRA-TIEMPO and I met Ana Maria, that was the thing that I finally heard the thing that I had been saying and believing, and seeing it as something that had become a whole organization, a company that was touring with work that was deeply rooted in art as social action. I was like, oh my God, it exists, and I can be a part of it. And there's someone who's actually telling me that it's possible and who also believes it's possible. And so I think is something that's really exciting about what we do, and something that is really like inspiring, and even like an affirmation for people who really deeply believe that change is possible, who really deeply believe that they have the capacity to make that change happen and be a part and a contribution to that. And I was one of those people, those people that felt affirmed by that. Yeah, and so I feel like that was really good thing that's been really reminding me, Ana Maria, of what you recently said. And I think it was at UCSD, an interview that you did that popped up, and I was watching it, and I was like, this is it. It's as simple, as clear, as direct as it can possibly be, and the most realist and truest reason why we do this.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you, Ruby, for that. I needed to hear that today. Um, so my name is Ana Maria. I'm the founding artistic director of CONTRA-TIEMPO, and deeply believe in my bones that dance can transform the world as we know it, and really generate and create a more loving and just future. I mean, I think that's the work that we're up to. It's not neat, clean, easy, predictable kind of work. It's kind of like agreeing to be in a life of continual discovery and growth and discomfort sometimes, and willingness to kind of stay in the frying pan, as Jawole Willajozaler taught me when I was 18. Like, what does it feel like to like simmer inside the heat and be willing to kind of yeah, wait out all the delicious flavors to come out? Is kind of the work that I feel like we're continually doing. And I've been thinking a lot recently, and Ruby, you reminded me this of what does it mean to hope as a muscle? Like, what does it mean to hope and imagine and believe? And that I think, is also oftentimes we think of hope as something like that you have or you don't have, right? But that hope being a practice and really being this way of engaging in the world of possibility. And so it's been almost 2 decades that we've been a dance company. It'll be 2 decades this coming February, which is when we will be seeing
Hey,
officially 20 years old, when we see you all. And so, it's a really special time, I think, because both in terms of just like being a dance organization in the United States of America for 2 decades is just a huge accomplishment, period. But also to be existing inside of this practice of possibility and the ways in which we have, and the ways we've continued to be committed to this vision of dance transforming the world. Yeah, it feels like a really special moment and a special time. So we're just super excited to see you all very, very soon. And we're based in Los Angeles, but I just took on a new faculty position at the University of California in San Diego.
congratulations.
Thank you, in the theater and dance department there. So I'm actually moving back and forth between Los Angeles and San Diego, and Ruby's based in Arizona, but also, is in Alaska right now. So, I mean, I think in the ways in which the world works, many of us are kind of moving in and out of multiple spaces, but Los Angeles, California is really our home base, as the place that we're deeply rooted. And when we think about our home community, it's LA.
Hmm. It's very exciting. And, in our 20s, that's when we wild out and get a lot of stuff done. So I'm excited for CONTRA-TIEMPO's 20s. And I'm thinking about those origins, and, before, this 20-year-old birthday, what happened before? And I kind of want to frame it in the sense of what was missing in your world, Ana Maria, when you were thinking about what were the next steps, how to make this, and now that you're on the precipice of 20 years, what's missing in the world that you want your artistry to sort of reflect on, get at, and move through? What
a great question. Thank you for that question. I I think that there's a way in which the original sort of precipice of what became CONTRA-TIEMPO, it was my thesis concert at UCLA. I was getting my master's in choreography there at the Department of World Arts and Cultures. I had come off of about a 3.5 year uh, grounding in Brooklyn, New York, with the Center for Family Life in Sunset Park, this social services group work nonprofit that works inside of community in Sunset Park, and using dance as a mechanism for social change, choreographing with young people, their lives and their realities inside of Sunset Park, Brooklyn. And coming from, this dance world where it felt so often I would be in spaces where I actually felt like I didn't belong, or I wasn't allowed to actually engage my full self. I had to be in the Afro-Haitian company, but leave out my salsa and any of my contemporary training, or go into like a contemporary dance space and kind of leave out my salsa and leave out my Dunham and Afro-Cuban, and or go into like a salsa space and kind of pretend like I was okay with all of the, nonsense, misogynist nonsense, like do all these things where I was like having to kind of, yeah, like code switch and shift and manipulate myself to fit into these places that none of them actually felt fully articulate of who I was and who I believed the world to be. And so honestly, that's why I wound up founding this company. It grew out of this thesis project that was really about salsa as a metaphor for resistance, thinking about partner dancing specifically, teaching us about resistance. And it was during the Bush era, which it seems like the good old days compared to where we are now in the moment. But it was like when Bush was the second Bush, that was like, you're either for us or against us. Like if you push back and resist any of these ideas about immigration, and you're anti-American, right? Like these whole concepts and ideas of like pushback and resistance as being negative and anti-American. And I was so interested in the ways in which salsa, as a dance form, you need that pushback and you need that resistance. You need that like engagement. Otherwise, you don't actually have capacity to be in conversation with your partner or like do the dance. The dance doesn't work without the resistance. You have to have the resistance. And so that felt like this beautiful metaphor to explore about how resistance is actually really critical for our future as a people. And so out of that work grew this piece called CONTRA-TIEMPO. And in that piece, I felt like it was the first time that I felt as an artist, I was able to actually really be fully 100% who I was, get to actually engage the stories and the realities and the dynamics of being inside the world with full truth and authenticity. And that felt exciting, and it felt beautiful, and it felt new, and it felt really like this kind of this opportunity to really see and witness and experience how dance could transform conversations. And so out of that work really grew the company. I didn't mean to actually found a dance company. It was just like this piece kind of took on a world of its own. And a lot of my mentors, Rennie Harris and Jaule, Willa Zoller, and Linda Udine from Viva Brazil, these three folks who I were regularly meeting with, all three of them in different times told me like, you're already doing a dance company, so you might as well make it official. And so, from then on, from filing for 501(c)(3), deciding to do kind of a nonprofit direction, because I was like, I don't think we're a commercial enterprise. I'm an anti-capitalist, grew up a communist baby, workers party baby. I was like, I can't do the commercial thing. I don't think that makes sense. So we did the nonprofit thing, which, we all know that's got its own problems and issues. But the decision to kind of be of service and have a framework that was really about service versus about making a bunch of money was the interest in the nonprofit. And then really decided to like take it on. And I mean, I'm skipping, but here we are. But like that was the original trajectory, this idea of like having a space, having a voice, having a place where artists like myself could exist in their hybridity and their in-betweenness and in their, the multiplicity of what does it mean to be an artist of color, an artist who's working inside of ancestral technologies and inside of ancestral practices, inside of social dance forms. I can't tell you how many times I was told the first like decade of our work that what we did wasn't real dance, like real concert dance or real, like I just got told that so much at the beginning. And, I was like, thank you for sharing. And we're going to keep going. So I think clearly what we do is real dance. And, you're going to see it. And then February, these dancers get down. They know how to move their bodies and express fully. But I think your second part of the question of like, what's missing now, I think we're in a very different world. There are a lot of incredible artists and incredible work that's happening, moving inside of the way that I think CONTRA-TIEMPO has really been moving in terms of engaging these ancestral practices, thinking about the world, and thinking about dance as a mechanism for social change. I think right now we're in a moment where artists, I love, somebody said this to me the other day, that artists are first responders. And we are like on the front line of what does it mean to like engage and practice hope, joy, the power of the people. What does it mean inside of a world where everywhere you look, you feel like there are things undermining these possibilities? What does it mean to actually be like leading and practicing inside of these understandings and frameworks, as if our lives depend on it, because they do. And so I actually think that there's a lot more urgency in the work that we're doing now that feels, whereas before it felt kind of like self-expression and self-understanding and like having a space. I feel like where we are right now in the future feels like actually building a future where we exist and where we can like, and where we're going to be able to have our bodies be safe and where we're going to have large sense of belonging, and also survival, like really like survival. So yeah, sorry if that sounds a little.
Again, the resistance, right? It's like this doesn't really occur without that investigation. And I think like first responders who go into the danger, who go into the chaotic nature that is the unknown, right? And try to triage and are always underrepresented, always underpaid, and I think that's magical, and is the sort of cohesive, artistic humanity glue that holds us all together. And it's a great segue to think about the humans who are in the company. And I'd love to hear from you, Ruby, about, teaching at a college is like so many of my students see these companies come through and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to do that, right? And then you get to that place and it is hard, it's challenging, you are doing the dang thing. And all over the world, right? You're traveling, especially in a touring company, especially when the engagements can be sometimes a day and you're in and out. How does that life feel for you? Especially as it resonates in this urgency that Anne-Marie is talking about. How's that land?
Yeah, you're right, and that it was a really great segue because there's things that you're saying, even in response to what Ana Maria was saying and what Ana Maria named, of like, well, one, we are very committed to like a multi-layer, like scaffolding of engagement, and so we actually stay away from going to a place just once or for 2 days. And we are very adamant about being there for a full week. And so we actually say no to engagements that don't meet that ask, because we understand that building relationship takes time and even a week is not enough. But that we understand that relationship building takes time, and that we need multiple entry points, and it's not just one entry point. I think one of the things that came up, because we were just at ASU and I actually graduated from ASU. So we were having a conversation with first year students about well, one of the things that it was about, like, you know, what does it look like after you graduate? What are your 4 years in college? That kind of a perspective and view. And I remember being there's two things that I remember from being in school. One was that, like, we had a conversation where we brought in a bunch of people who graduated from ASU to let us know like what they were doing post graduation, and it was actually quite depressing. Really sad. And I just remember thinking like, why would you all invite these people to have this conversation with us? We're about to graduate and we're all freaking out now. Like, we're freaking out. We made the wrong choice. We made the wrong decision. Everyone's talking about how they're sad that they're not dancing. Like, it would be one thing if they said they weren't dancing and they're happy that they found a new thing, but they were like sad they were not dancing anymore. And so it was just, yeah, it was like kind of everybody was like ready to switch their major. Whole situation. And then the other thing I remember was like, I'm like I like practicality. I'm like, I like steps, and I like what comes next. And even inside of my therapy, it's like a question. Okay, so now I know how I feel. What do I do next? And how do I? Yeah, I'm very. And so I just remember thinking like, you know, artists would come in and sometimes say like, you know, follow your dreams, and I'm like, okay, I'm following my dreams. What do I do next? And one of the things that became very clear to me is that we're constantly being fed what success looks like. And whether it's on social, a lot of it is on social media. It's like there's one version of success, and it's being a part of a dance company, making a living off of dance in one specific way, or being commercial, right? Like there's like very specific ways that is viewed as success. And I think it's like flipping that and trying to go, which is really hard because again, it's like being fed to you by your family, your parents, your school, social media. And it's like you get to define. I think it's beautiful about being an artist is you get to define what success looks like for you, and you also get to define what your pathway is. Again, I also like if I would have like picked a different major, there's like you do this, and you do that, and then you become the thing. And with an artist, when I was getting ready to graduate, my mom was like, so do you want to teach? And I was like, no, I don't think so. And she's like, well, do you want to perform? And I was like, I don't know. And she was like, okay, so like, what are the other options? What are you gonna do? And the truth is that I didn't know. And then came in the thing where we have a human systems ecologist, Holly Johnson, and she like cares for our body and somatically cares for our organization and the individuals. And she was in that class with me, and she actually highlighted for me that I do things because I love them, and as when I'm doing things in alignment with love, that's actually the when things come into fruition. And again, like practicality, I was like, okay, you know, we could think of it as like a thing, but I love to show people how the greatness that they already hold. Like that is something that is like, I love doing that. And I feel like I do that when I'm on stage, when I dance. I feel like I'm a mirror as to like an affirmation of who you are and the greatness you already hold. I also really, I helped somebody apply for a grant once, and I told them when I was writing who they are and the things that they've accomplished about all the beautiful and amazing things they do in community and the beautiful and amazing things they've already accomplished. And that was me showing a person how great and they already are. And so like really understanding what it is that you love and what is like your why and what is like the reason why you're here. And then you know, our access to creativity actually allows us to see how there's multiple ways we can walk inside of that alignment. And so you might, you know, I could sit here and say, yeah, grant writing. And people would be like, what do you mean? How is that in alignment with showing people their greatness? And then here's an example of how it's in alignment with showing people their greatness. And so I think that, yeah, it just like re-emphasizing that we get to define for ourselves what success looks like as artists. And that actually, one, it can be scary because there is no blueprint. There is no one size fits all. And two, it can also be exciting because you get to invent it. Like nobody gets to tell you that's wrong. And so that is also what's been magical about the people that are inside of our organization right now. Some of the stuff that Ana Maria was saying, and even some of the things that you named is like, we actually have to be like, this organization has brought in actually people who, the resistance, right? That there is a lot of resistance against. So that means challenging one another. Like that actually means showing up and saying, I actually don't think it was okay that you did that. And I would like for us to do something different. And as someone, I mean, I know Maria, maybe you can talk a little bit about this, but when we're inside of places where things have, worked, or the nonprofit industrial complex, like we actually now find ourselves in the position, because we are inside of this, inside of the hierarchy, we are inside of capitalism. Like that is what a nonprofit organization is doing. It's a way so that we can still fit inside of capitalism. So then we now are in the positions that we were, like are fighting against. And now we are like, as a director, I'm actually in that position of a higher up hierarchy. And so I should be expecting to be challenged. I should be expecting to have a hard time when someone tells me something and I think I have a better answer for something, and catch myself in that space. Like I have to understand, because this is what we're fighting for. This is the thing, we're trying to dismantle hierarchy. I am at the top of the hierarchy right now. And so how are we like, and this organization attracts that. I think one of the things that is very special about the now is that we have the people that are also deeply in alignment with their values. So they're in alignment with their values, they're in alignment with their why, and they're also bringing up challenges and resistance. And then we are also in a place where we're finding like we're open to it, we're inviting it. That doesn't mean, again, like she said, it's pretty. It doesn't mean that we're always like, okay, yes, like tell me more. No, sometimes we respond and be like, actually I don't want to hear it, and then we have to reflect and be like, okay, Ruby, that was not the answer you gave it in that moment, and show up again and be like, I apologize, I take accountability for that, and I want to welcome that into the space again. Yeah, I don't know if you want to touch on that, Ana Maria, because I know that you ran the organization as a person that was at the head of the org, and now things are shifting and changing.
Yeah, so the organization was run with an artistic director and artists, board of directors, right? But very much like the ways, and it wasn't even purposeful. It was kind of like there were attempts throughout the creation in the first decade and a half to figure out ways to empower leadership to come from other places. But what I continued to figure out and find is that like I was the one that would be willing to stay up late at night and write the grants and do the thing. And like, that there was a level of like, there was this level of like relentlessness that was needed, I think, especially in the beginning of an organization, to kind of get into the groove of like establishing norms and creating some systems and like being creating momentum. And upon reflection, there is like just a lot of ways that for many years we worked with me being at the top and it being me, in some ways me against them, right? Like, and not purposefully, like that's not originally how I was imagining this would look. It's very lonely to be inside of a leadership position in that way, and it's also actually not functional in terms of creating an environment where people feel empowered and feel held and feel heard and um feel commitment and buy-in to like a larger mission. And so right before COVID, we kind of went through some major personnel changes. We had some pretty intense breakdowns with some individuals, and it was like a come to Buddha moment, whatever you call it, like a moment of like we need some like deep work that is revisiting our values, revisiting the why of the organization.
Yeah, I remember Ana Maria showing up to a meeting once and being like, y'all, I think I'm done. And we were just like, what? What is happening?
Good. I think we had our run. Like we did it. It was a great run. I think I'm out. That's it's interesting because that was a moment where I think people were like, "No, like, what are you talking? Like, no, it's not." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm not. No, I'm not doing this anymore." So it's like the upper management goes on strike. But no, I do think that there was this way that it began, and again, it happened right pre-COVID, and so that then when once COVID happened, it was kind of like this, everything screeched to a halt, and it was this opening of, okay, do we keep trying to like survive in this way that we have, or do we actually, or do we like spend off the money that we have, even though our budget just like got cut, by a three-fourths? Or do we use the money that we have to gather in community and continue to be in conversation and do this work that is slow and continuous and tedious? And I just think that there's this way that the decision to kind of like slow down, stop, reflect, deepen, and actually get inside of some of the like undercurrents of why things were falling apart allowed us to really yeah, just make some incredible discoveries. Quetzal Flores, who's an incredible musician and artist out here in Los Angeles, was a huge part of this kind of like I almost don't even want to call it like strategic restructuring work, but that's kind of what it was in terms of like us going back to the drawing board of how we're designing this. This also simultaneously kind of was happening as I was exploring this idea of going into academia. And so in order to support me to actually go into academia, I could not sustain and continue to be functioning in the way that we were functioning. We horizontalized our leadership. And so Ruby became a resource director. Jeanette Galdames, who was our longtime rehearsal director, became our programming director. We at the time then hired a managing director who's no longer with us, Karina Sainz, and we wound up kind of just fully restructuring and moving into this horizontal leadership model, while also continuing to work with Holly Johnston, who again is a somatic ecologist and thinking about the ecology of people and systems. And so that work has allowed us to, first of all, for me not to be alone. I will say it is so much easier to do this kind of work when it's not one person holding all of this by themselves. But also holding both responsibility, but also it's hard to be critically self-reflective when there's a power dynamic. There is a way that I can come to Ruby and Jeanette and be like, okay, be honest with me. What are you seeing? Like, what's happening? Help me out here because I'm having a really hard time understanding and hearing, right? So there's the way that also as a leadership team, we are able to like help ourselves practice accountability and critical self-reflection and that work that again in a hierarchical model is not possible because there's not community, there's not accountability, linear accountability in that way. I think we're working on it. We're figuring it out. We're getting better. We're also breaking down sometimes and figuring things out. But all of this is like in relationship to joyous justice because I feel like, again, this piece in many ways, it started pre-pandemic. It was a piece that we created in the first Trump era. I mean, it was a piece that's really about joy as a practice, joy as a weapon, as a tool, as a mode to change and shift systems, and it's looking at justice and specifically our injustice system as a way to think about the ways in which we've actually failed one another. Um, and how we could reimagine an actual justice system that's rooted in gratitude and connection and love, and reciprocity and like deep indigenous wisdoms that are like a part of the history of our nation, but in ways that we've actually undermined by building these injustice systems and in terms of how we're functioning. And so there's like this way that this piece started at the beginning in some ways of this process of horizontalizing our leadership and moving in different ways. And the pandemic happened, you know, Biden was elected. We had a whole thing. Like it's like there a lot has happened. Trump has been elected again, and here we are. And we're like back doing this piece in this way where I was like, when we first started performing it again, I was like, oh, I can't wait to live in a world where this piece feels irrelevant. It does not feel irrelevant right now. It feels deeply, deeply resonant and relevant, and actually ways in which I think it almost felt like we were futuring when we created originally things that actually yeah, we made and created and imagined, and that now inside the world we live in currently actually feel so like they've been like amplified because of how we've been experiencing being in the world together currently. And so, yeah, to me, this piece is really a gift because it really does feel like it's a practice. It's a continual showing up in this conversation about joy, and about joy not being surface happiness, but joy being the ability to have a deep relationship with grief and loss and injustice, and that joy in the context of that is power, and joy is it can be yeah, like mechanized to like generate and create something different than the world is currently. And so, joy is about futuring. And I really feel like that's what this piece is, and that's what this piece is doing. We just performed it for UC San Diego, which is, my new home base with my department. And it was so deeply moving and powerful to have the opportunity to share this work, both with my students, with my colleagues, with the communities that we're building down there, inside of a post-election world where I think there was a lot of folks feeling really confused and confronted by where are we going from here? Like, what does it mean to have a world where some of us who were born here might feel like there's a space for us to be deported back to countries that we don't even feel connected in terms of home, like that, like these ways of instability that people were immediately feeling after Trump was elected. I think there's this way that this piece is it's a balm um, of community, of connection, of power building collectively that feels yeah, deeply called forth in this moment. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so much dissertations upon dissertations. I know I know you already got the job, but there's more work to be done, right? More research to be had, and I think there's a mythology around artists, and that like we're doing it because we love it, and only a portion of that is the motivation. It's also it is the practice that allows us to confront again the unknown and come at it with an open heart, because when we're in chaos, right, we fall back onto our training. And if we're trained to be loving first, if we're trained to be critical thinking, creative thinking first, that's what we'll come at. Even if we're yelling at people, it's like, I'm yelling at you, but I love you because I'm using the tone that I use when I love you and I want to hug you. But and I think about the horizontalizing of, or democratizing might be another way of talking about that, and giving up control when the modeling is about holding on to control, and then opening up a piece like you're about to bring to Portland Ovations that is then about community, which is another level and layer of bringing in people who don't know y'all in the ways that you, and in a few days being like, all right, now we're on stage together. How do we cultivate that ethos together? And one thing that you said, just like the ways you're using joy, right? Artists, I think, and activists in general, and maybe artivists together, are constantly creating words because all of our best words are getting co-opted, right? I had a friend who was like, do you want to know what the number one word used at a Trump rally is? And of course, I didn't know because I've never been to one. And she's like, it's the word love. Like, don't you love this country? Don't you love our flag? Don't you love this feeling? And as someone who also uses love quite a bit, I'm like, oh no, do I have to come up with another word for love? And really, it's like, no, just come see the show, right? Go go to the workshop, go to the class, go to the community, down the street. Like, they're loving all the time. And, whether we say that word or if it's a different language, that feeling of community. And so again, I'm thinking about the creation of this process, the meaning of the project. You just had this beautiful moment, and now your workplace. I'm curious how you go about bringing this piece and all its fertileness to all of these different places. And one last little framing: who do you hope is in the audience? Who, if you could like curate who comes, like, who do you want in this audience to feel that feeling and to walk out of the theater or the space and hopefully share that with other folks?
Yeah. Can I say something real quickly? Answer that question, and then Ruby, I think if you want, you're welcome to jump in, but and talk maybe about the beginning. But like that of like who do we want in the space? The fact that you just shared that love is the primary word inside of a Trump rally, there is this way that actually that to me that gives me like a deep hope of that makes me reminds me of like, again, no matter where people's politics are or what realities they're kind of grappling with or trying to figure out and understand, human beings want to like belong. They want to be loved. They want to feel like they matter. They want to feel like their lives are significant. They want like that's what no matter who you are, no matter what, different people are having different ways of imagining and creating that for themselves, but that really at the crux of it, people want to belong. And so there is a way that I think what I love about this work is it is asking people to show up for belonging and showing up for connection and showing up for love, and showing up for justice and asking us to like think about and engage in these ideas from places of connection. And so I think who I would love to be there is, I mean, honestly, everyone, and including people who don't necessarily think that they're aligned with some of these ideas. Like, right? I want the abolitionists there. I want the people who are fighting for a free Palestine. I want the folks who are standing for a woman's right to choose. Like, I want all of those people there. And I actually would really love to have people there who voted for Trump because they're like, the system's not working for any of us right now. Let's just destroy it or like take it down or whatever, right? Like there are a lot of people who I think aren't necessarily again like trying to hurt anybody. They really are just like, this system isn't working. And so like I would love for those folks to show up and be in our audience. I would love for people who are like, really kind of feeling disillusioned and upset at where America is going. Like I would love for people like who are engaging in those kinds of like conversations, even if they're really different than the ways in which we're engaging with them. I would love those folks to be in the space. I would love students and I would love professors and I would love, grandparents and, little ones, like, kids. I think this is one of our Contra-Tiempo shows that is like really like it brings young people in a really beautiful way. It's an all ages performance that really is asking us all multi generations to show up together collectively. So I know it sounds kind of general, but like everybody and everybody is who I want to like experience and witness this show and be a part of it. Yeah, and be a part of it.
Yeah. There's a spoken word section in the work where we open up with you have the right to remain joyous. Anything you say can and will be used to uplift your spirit and brighten your light. And then it goes on, you have the right to love yourself. You have the right to self-expression. Like it goes on into this moment. And that's one of my favorite parts in the piece because we have done a lot of this art, a lot of movement and there's like a beautiful moment where one of our amazing dancers, one of the other directors, Jeanette, comes around and hugs individuals and goes through the space in the audience and gives people hugs or puts her hand on their heart, holds their hand. There's just all these really beautiful moments of connection. And then also like naming like entry points. I have a friend, my best friend, Shelly Jackson, who does a lot of like social justice work in Arizona where I'm from. And she was telling me the other day about like, we actually we can't just have one way to join the movement because there are multiple, like we need different entry points. We need different entry points, not just the way that you have to like show up and be like, you know, abolish everything. We need actually the entry point of actually, what if we just slightly change one thing? We need the entry point of abolish everything. We need that, like we need multiple entry points into movement so that people can feel affirmed and feel connected to it. And I feel like joyUS Justice is and offers that those multiple entry points. And so I think that, yeah, I think that that's what makes the piece so exciting and makes the piece like so relevant and so affirming and so a place where people can really see themselves in it. And then that's the way that we talk about the work when we do a lot of our engagement work throughout the week is that we name these different entry points and we engage people in these different parts of the work. When we did the show for students at UCSD afterwards, I felt I ended up talking about how, again, connected to like when people tell us constantly that we cannot or that that's impossible or that you know that's something that you might not be capable of doing, and even if we hear it in very small increments, we really start to believe that that is our truth. And so when we say joy as an act of resistance, it's because you're going against all of those things that have been fed to you and you've been told, and you actually start flipping it and resisting that truth and resisting that is your reality and building and showing the world that there is actually another reality and that I'm going to show up with joy and show up being life affirmed, even though you have told me that I have no right to live, that I have no right to be, that I have no right to dream. And that is, for me, when I talk about joy as resistance, that is the thing. It's like, it's so normal to be told constantly that you cannot, or to be told to not believe in something. And so when you get to again show up and be like, joke's on you, like the joke is on you, I am showing up joyous to this game, to this party, to this movement. And yeah, and that's what one of the things that really makes me excited about when we get to share this work and share parts of joyUS Justice.
Oh, you're amazing. You're both amazing. This company is amazing. Thank you so much, the generosity of your time. And I just have one thing more just to ask, especially this idea of tension. And y'all can say anything else you want to say as we close up. But I'm curious, what is bringing you joy? In this moment, doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to be little, can be whatever it is, but also what are you anxious about and how are those two ideas interplaying? Because it isn't all, roses. There are some thorns and how do we continue to like nurture the buds as they come through? So what's bringing you joy? What's making you anxious, and anything else you'd like to share with us? And I'll leave it to y'all. I won't say anything to end the thing because it's your company, it's not mine.
I want to say, Brian, you're also amazing. You're incredible. It's been such a gift to get to share space with you. And yeah, I've loved the ways in which you're holding this conversation. I feel filled. So thank you for that. I just will say the thing that's been bringing me a lot of joy is the like head down into the work, engaging in community, being with our folks, being with my students, being with the company, and being with community, and just seeing the power of what does it mean to keep showing up inside of this work, inside of these practices, inside of these movement practices, specifically like our social dance practices, how wise they are, and how, you know, how incredible they are in moments where you feel like, oh, what are we gonna do? Sweating and moving together and getting down together. It's where it's at. The thing that's giving me anxiety more recently is my kids being a mom and raising two boys inside of this world where I feel this deep sense of disregard for women and females and you know, female identified bodies. What does it mean to like raise our boys inside of the world and in the environment? And so, yes, it's giving me anxiety, but it's also reminding me of the practices and that I got to apply those in the micro in my family and my, you know, and so both while that's giving me anxiety, it's also giving me charge and like desire to keep doing the work and keep building this movement. So yeah.
Something that's bringing me joy, I think, it has taken me. I remember being lots of reflecting of being being little, and I remember being when I was little, I was always really shy, and I didn't like to ask for things that were not offered to me. So like, if I needed a straw, even I wouldn't ask for the straw if the server forgot to give me the straw. And my mom, like, she tried so hard. She would make me practice. Like, you need to get up and go ask for the straw. And so, but I was just like, you know, whether that's the way that I was socialized, whether that's ancestral trauma being passed down to me, but that's the way that I was wanting to move in the world, in this like really shy and timid place. And I think even into my 20s, when I was, you know, going out dancing and being wild, like there was even a way in that space that I was having a hard time, like naming my boundaries or naming the things that I was not okay with or the things that I wanted. And so, yeah, you know, being a woman, being a Latina, being a daughter of two undocumented parents, like a lot of these things feeding into the way that I was moving around in the world. And what's bringing me, it's going to make me cry. The thing that's bringing me a lot of joy is that, I'm moving around with conviction, and I'm like speaking with sureness, and that I'm speaking with like understanding that the things that I say have power. And that was not easy for me, that was really hard. And so noticing moments where I'm like, my words are like, this is what I know, and not in a place of like questioning or unsureness or like tiptoeing, because it was so difficult for me to find myself in that place. And now I ask for the straw. I needed a straw. I ask for the things that I need, and I ask and I stand firmer on my boundaries. I'm still working on that part, but I am taking slow steps towards that. And so I think, and noticing that, like being like getting to step and see, and being in a place of reflection and noticing that I'm doing that has brought me a lot of joy. And I think that the thing that brings me anxiety, again, coming back to like when we would have like assemblies in elementary school, and people would come and they would say like all these like inspiring things. And I remember like I was the kid that was like, oh my gosh, like, you guys, we can do it. And I would look around and everybody would be like not paying attention, or like falling asleep, or like playing or doing something else. I'm feeling that again. Like I'm feeling that. Like I feel like I don't understand. Like, why would you want to respond to each other in that way? Why are you so angry when driving down the road? Like, I just don't get it. Like, I don't understand what has brought such, like, you feel so called to move with so much anger. And so I find myself in that same space of like I just like when I was in fifth or sixth grade and being like, I don't understand. Like, why don't you want to? Why don't you feel that same like passion or excitement? And why do you feel so called to be so mean? And yeah, so I find myself in finding myself relating back to that feeling. And I think seeing that I'm feeling that again or seeing that is giving me something that's giving me anxiety. Yeah. But can you answer the question, Brian?
Hear your answer.
Oh man. Of course. I can start with my anxiety. Similar to you, Ruby. Uh, I have a hard time, my profession is about educating and bringing folks together, and I think you mentioned this earlier, just empowering folks, right? And to then see folks disempowered or empowered in a way that is about subjugating other people and about controlling, demeaning, and trying to be intentional about the practice. Part of the reason why I was like, I'm not going to say anything at the thing, and like it's a tension, right? Like I also don't want to discount my voice in some ways because I think it has something to say, but I also want other voices to take the lead. I think other voices need to take the lead. Historically speaking, women and women of color have always been, femme bodies of color have always been at the forefront, the first responders, the folks who have told us time and time again what's wrong, and not just what's wrong, but how we can, it's just like your mom, Ruby. It's like, go up there and get the straw, right? Like it's that tone, it's that voice. I love you. Do it different, right? Be better. So that's causing me anxiousness because I think about all the mass traumas, and selfishly, and I'm like, what if I had them in my class, right? What if they just took one class of mine, right? What if they went to one show? Could that have made the difference? Was bringing me joy. I am a new dad. I have a 3-year-old, and so and I've resisted having kids for the longest time because I was like, what? Why would I bring someone into this world? This is a stupid, stupid world. Why would I do that to them? And coincidentally, like after Trump was elected the first time, I was like, I'm going to go back to school. And then after I got my degree and I started teaching here, just this sense of like, you know what? Fuck him. He is not gonna run my life. Fear is not gonna be the thing that is gonna stop me from having this child, and my spouse Carrie and I have this beautiful little baby who is seeing the world and all of its joys, and it's amazing to watch anybody grow, but specifically this little one. And yeah, I'm terrified, and I'm also in total love. And again, like I think part of being an artist is meeting folks like y'all. And as you say, Ruby, it's like we can do it. We can do it. And similar to you, Anna Maria, is like it's not that you like sought out to make this company, but it was something that needed to happen and occurred in that sort of organic way. I think about these forms like salsa and flamenco. Like no one was like, you know what, I'm going to make a form and it's going to be great. It's like, no, I need to express this grief, this joy, and you want to do it too? Okay, great. You don't know it? Great. Come on, let's do it together to get through those things. So those are the tension points for me. Like I said, I appreciate y'all and all the tears and the joy that is to come. And I'm excited to meet you, Ruby. And I know I'm not going to see you, Anna Maria, but I'm a professor too. If we want to, like, you bring me out to San Diego, I'll bring you to Maine. It's not as nice, but we got things here like Portland Ovations.
Send me your information. I want to know more. Yes, let's connect. And
For
also
sure, for
feel
sure.
like maybe we'll connect to some of the American Studies, Dance Studies conferences.
Yeah, I'm gonna be at a conference literally the day
think that's it. We're so excited to see everyone and share the
Yeah.
work.
Such an
Come
honor
to
meeting
the
you,
show.
Brian. Yes, come. And it's so great meeting you. It's such a sweet moment. So thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's conversation, and to Brian, Ruby, and Ana Maria for their enthusiasm and warmth. As I mentioned, CONTRA-TIEMPO's joyUS Justice will be performed on Thursday, February 6th at 7 p.m. at Merrill Auditorium. Tickets are still available at portlandovations.org. I would like to thank the Maine Humanities Council and Backco Financial for their generous support of these programs. And thank you again for tuning in to POV, Portland Ovations Podcast.